Seeing as the nation seems gripped with I agree with Nick fever after the first ever live television debates last week, I thought I would start with a breakdown of the Liberal Democrats' policies, focusing on 5 areas: education, foreign policy and defence, immigration, environment and the economy. Before that though, I thought I'd ask you what you thought about the first ever election debate last week. A lot of the mainstream media seems to have thought that Clegg came out on top, but do you agree with them? And a lot of the minor parties, especially the regional specific parties, dismissed it, saying that they were a waste of time. Do you agree with them? Blah 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 blah. Text comments would be lovely, as well as video responses are more than welcome, and we can chat about it, talk about it, it would be nice. Also, rating would be good too, because that makes me happy. Right, okay, now, Lib Dem policy. Firstly, education. The Lib Dems plan to invest £2.5 billion into schools, helping to reduce class sizes, as well as funding projects that are meant to help struggling students like one-to-one tuition and weekend and after-school classes. This will, of course, require more teachers, and they plan to invest some of this money into making the teacher training programme and schemes like Teach First more prevalent and larger. They also want to bring in compulsory special needs assessments for all 5-year-olds, so that those with learning disabilities can be identified earlier. In terms of the national curriculum, they want to shrink it substantially, replacing it with a minimum curriculum requirement, giving more flexibility and independence to specific schools and their head teachers. In their manifesto, they also mention a plan for all 14 to 19-year-olds to have the option to study in college rather than at school if it suits them better, giving each specific student more flexibility in how they learn, when they learn, etc. One of the big things that sets them apart from the other parties is their plan to scrap tuition fees for all students studying their first degree in higher education, planning to phase out the fees over 6 years. This long phase-out period is due to the fact that the economy is a bit crappy at the moment, and it wouldn't be a good idea to scrap them like that. But after 6 years, they plan to have no tuition fees, similar to the system in Scotland. They also want to scrap Labour's target of having 50% of young people going on to higher education, instead focusing and encompassing things like apprenticeships and paid vocational courses and things like that. Okay, foreign policy and defence. The Lib Dems are probably the most pro-European party, pledging to work together with the other member states to start regulating the banks and what else? And to create more jobs, which is very important. They also say that they're committed to reforming agricultural subsidies as well as general EU budgeting. They also mention that they want to stop the need for members of the European Parliament to keep going to the Strasbourg Parliament every month, which they claim will save the taxpayer £200 million a year. They also acknowledge that the EU has grown and changed since the UK became a member state in about 30 years ago. So they say that when there is another big change in the UK's relationship vis-a-vis Europe, they want to hold a nationwide in-out referendum to give the people the choice to stay in or not. They also remain committed to having the UK join the euro eventually, and when the economic circumstances are right. And when it does come to them wanting to join the euro, they want it to go to a national referendum as well. They also want to raise international aid to 0.7% of gross national income. In defence, probably their biggest commitment is their desire to not renew the Trident nuclear deterrent scheme, which they claim is a remnant of the Cold War and no longer necessary in today's politics. They say that the non-renewal of this scheme will save the country £100 billion. They say that they are committed to the welfare of servicemen and women, saying that they want to raise the pay of lower-ranked servicemen and women, as well as providing more funding for the modernisation of troops' homes in the UK so that they are fit for heroes. In immigration, they want to reintroduce exit checks so that they can regulate the people who are here on temporary visas to make sure that they actually go home when they're supposed to. They also mention a plan where they want people here on work visas to be confined to a specific area where their work is needed, so they don't take away jobs from local people. However, they never really specify how they're going to do this, seeing as counties don't really have border control. But yeah, that's one of their policies. They want to prioritise deportation of criminals, people traffickers, and other high-profile cases. They also want to encourage immigrants to gain British citizenship, and mention a scheme where they're going to encourage people who have been here illegally for 10 years or more, who arrived before 2010, and have like a clean record. They want to encourage those people to get citizenship and like to stay here illegally. To stay here legally, not illegally. That would be silly. Now moving on to environment, they are committed to scrapping the third runway expansion at Heathrow. In terms of renewable energy, they want 40% of the national grid to be provided by renewable sources by 2020 and 100% by 2050. They want to begin a 10-year insulation programme where each household can qualify for up to £10,000 towards making their house more energy efficient, including installing a new boiler, insulation and stuff like that. And they claim that this is going to be paid for by the subsequent energy saving that will happen. They also committed to working together with Europe to create like a greener economy and in having fairer deals for currently developing nations. On the economy, they say, we are committed to setting out the tough choices we are prepared to take so that we can balance the country's books. As well as saving money by scrapping the renewal of the Trident nuclear deterrent scheme, they also want to put a stop to the plans to introduce nationwide identity cards, which will save the country a lot of money as well. They also claim that they've found £15 billion that they can save in the national spending per year. They are also committed to cutting spending, but only when the economic climate is right for it, saying that this will probably be in 2011 or 2012. They want to introduce a bank levy so that banks can pay back the money that they received from the taxpayers, their ultimate goal being to break them up to ultimately get them lending again. If I'm 100% honest, economics is not my strong point. I was rubbish at maths in school. So if anybody wants to go into more depth in terms of their economic policy, then you can find a link to their manifesto in the sidebar, and you can break it down much better than I ever will, and maybe post it as a video response, and then I'll link it here with an annotation or something. So if somebody wants to get on that, go for it. Other things that I should probably mention is that they want to lower the voting age to 16, they want a fully elected House of Lords, and they want to change the current voting system, which is one vote per one person, to a proportional voting proportional representation, which involves people ranking parties in desire. If anybody voted in the European election last year, it's the same system as that. I'd really like to stress that this is not me analysing their manifesto. It's up to you to ask the questions and to find out where you stand on things. There's a link to the manifesto, to the whole manifesto in the description box down there, and I highly recommend that you read it. If you want to know my opinions on their policies, then hang around the comments for a little bit and you'll probably be able to see me debating with people and we'll have a chat about it.